Hey, Dave, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
So it's kind of funny. We don't mean to do this, I swear to God. We do not mean to go out and find Navy veterans who became entrepreneurs. If you're a Marine or you're in the Army or you're an Air Force guy, we'd be happy to have you on too. We may not like you as much, but we'll be happy to have you on. But Dave, again, thanks for coming on and tell us kind of a little bit. Now, you just got out, you said in August,
That's
and
correct.
you've
Yep.
already had this, you already have this business created before you get out. And what are you doing right now?
Well, right now I run a website, kindlepreneur.com, and brings in about 100,000 people per month to it. And I also run a software company called KDP Rocket, and helps authors figure out if their book idea will make them money and where there is a market and whether or not there is a market for what they want to write about. And so that's been taking up a lot of time. I'm also enjoying getting into courses, because creating courses gives you another way to be able to teach and present information in a much better way in my mind. So looking forward to that as well.
Well, and I like it, and we do not mean to do this. I don't know how we stumbled. We actually were talking last night. We go, wow, we kind of stumbled onto the former military entrepreneur little thing, because it's people we know. And I think it's a good segue too, because we talked about entrepreneurship, and that's part of what we do in this podcast. I think you're a perfect example of someone who thought about it before they got out, because we just did one about military transition. There was three of us, a guy Dwayne went to A school with, and me and Dwayne went to boot camp, and his A school, he was in Pensacola. I was just at Corey Station up the road as a cryptologist. So we've known each other for forever. And it's funny to get three guys together that basically went through the same time, and all three of us are in the entrepreneur world. But I don't think anyone did it the way you did it that we've talked to so far. You thought way ahead. And we also talked about the benefits of the military as far as college education, the GI Bill, that no matter what your background is, the military gives you an opportunity. Whether you don't believe in the military, whatever, I just tell people, don't give me your bullshit excuse. I can't go to college. I can't afford it. I can't do this. I go, nah, the military was a golden opportunity for a poor white kid who grew up in a single wide trailer in the middle of the desert, who had no one in his family had ever gone to college. So I just go, I don't want to hear that crap. So it's a perfect, though. You started what you said 4 years before you got out?
Yeah. And so it was kind of a funny story. The military just sent me to Korea for 2-year orders without my family. So, my two kids at the time, and I have three. And so I was leaving my wife at home with them, and I was going to Korea, and I started to realize to myself, like, what is my definition of success? And I mean, I was going through, I was doing well in the military. I was climbing the ranks, and I realized my goal wasn't to be an admiral. My goal wasn't to do a particular job or have a certain responsibility. I didn't have one. And so here I was missing 2 years of being there for my family, my kids, and I wasn't working towards anything. And that's when I decided that the military was not a part of my definition of success. I would have just gone through, done 20, maybe 30 years and look back and realize I didn't do what I wanted.
No.
And so we started to realize, okay, well, great. Then what are our options? If I got out of the military, and I would probably have to start all over. I mean, I was on submarines beforehand, and I definitely didn't want to do nuclear engineering anymore. That was no fun whatsoever. I was going to have to go work at some company and start all the way at the bottom, ground zero. And there was nothing that was like, yes, this is what I want. This is the passion. And so my wife started to push me towards becoming an entrepreneur. And that's when I started doing this research. But the problem for somebody who's on the other side of the world, working a full-time job, is that as an entrepreneur, I can't set up a mom and pop shop. I can't do a brick and mortar. I can't ship things because my shipping costs would be way too much. I'd never make money. And that's why I was almost forced into the only legitimate entrepreneurial thing I could do was online, because I could do that in Korea. And because of my time zone and differences, it even forced me further down. I needed something that I could work on when I could work on it. It didn't require me. It didn't require support systems. It didn't require shipping. None of that.
Yeah.
It was just whenever I could fit it in. And for me, that turned out to be building niche websites, learning search engine optimization, and ultimately creating books. And when I put those things together, we realized that this was a viable exit strategy from the military, that I could make more than enough money to supplement my family, take care of our living conditions. And then we started planning out. And it ended up being 4 years, because a lot of that was trying to mesh it with, finish this set of orders. Now I got to finish this set of orders, right? And then I could just cut it. But it worked out really well. It was a great transition. And one thing that I will say to anybody out there is that if you're doing that sort of thing, okay, if you're planning ahead and trying to build for, when you're ready to get out, when you're ready to quit your job or what have you, that gave me the necessary time to, in my mind, do things right. I didn't need money now. So I made a lot of decisions that were long-term decisions for the business and not short-term gain.
Yeah, that is important.
I want to ask you something. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, real quick, I was listening to Adam Carolla yesterday. He's our age, and I like listening to him. I've listened to him for years. He's been in my car for decades, pretty much. He's a real interesting kind of same thing, different element. He was talking about, because he was a carpenter. He was in construction from, I think, 18 to in his 30s. He didn't hit it big till in his 30s. It started to get bigger, and that was because he met Jimmy Kimmel.
Mm-hmm.
And so he talks about that, and his buddies, he's kind of kept them. All the guys he worked with, like his guy Ray. If you know Ray, I watch his shows. Ray's his kind of bumbling buddy that he's known since he was a kid, since fifth grade. And Ray kind of never has made it, even though Adam always had. And Adam goes, well, I was working construction. At night, I would go to improv classes. I was taking courses. I was doing my work and doing that. So that's exactly what you're doing. I did the same thing when I got my master's. I'd go straight from work in the military. I'd go to class, and then I'd have to go do watch sometimes. I had multiple 36-hour straight day, stay-ups.
Yeah.
But it was because I knew what my goal was and the plan was, and you made it very clear, because I just got an email. The timing's hilarious. It says, I'm a millennial. I used to think that hard work, passion, and dedication was all I needed, but that changed. And that shit drives me bonkers. Because you're a millennial, and you have proven that everything we talk about, it's hard work. You got to do the extra. You could have sat there and isolated duty. Anyone who knows what isolated duty is, there's not a lot to do. I mean, you could travel around and go to, different countries and stuff. But for the most part, it's wasted time in a sense. You got a lot of dead time. And I think you took total advantage of the situation and said, man, my family's not here. I got all this free time. Let me figure it out. And that goes across the board for everyone, because I've been in health and nutrition forever. The first thing I get is, I don't have the time. And I go, bullshit. And I go through their whole life, their whole day. And I go, there's 4 or 5 hours a day that you've got time to squeeze 45 minutes an hour in.
Well, and for anybody who's out there thinking to themselves, well, I was able to do this because my family wasn't there. Let me clarify that a little bit. Okay. So with the military, I was still working, 8 to 5 if I was lucky. A lot of times I was out to sea on a South Korean warship, right? But I would get up at 4 a.m, and that's when I started my work online. And the beautiful thing was there was nothing to distract me, because nothing's going on at 4 a.m. And I would work until about 7:30, get changed, go into work. And then I also worked during my my lunch period. Instead of going out and shooting the breeze, I would pull up my Word document and start typing out that next article, and email it to myself so that I could upload it when I get home. The only difference is that when my family finally moved in and I still was continuing the business, I just set aside that from 5 till 8 was nothing but family. That's it. And the best part about it was that when I was that optimized in my time, those 3 hours that I spent with my family was nothing but my family. And I think the quality of that is infinitely better than what a lot of people do, which is lie to themselves and say they're spending time with their family, but really they're sitting at the table on their phones. They're watching a movie, but that's kind of like we're sitting there silent, and then once the kids go to bed, the way that I worked it was it was always up to my wife. Do you want to hang out? Do you want to watch a movie? Do you want to go do something? Do you want to play a board game? And she's like, no, I like to read a book. And that was time for the business. And I would run downstairs and work on the business. So she got what she needed as well. So this doesn't need to be something that takes over your life. You just need to understand it is going to take time. And if you are needing money right now because you got rid of your job or something, you're going to have to start making short-term game decisions. And this is where a lot of people start to get into trouble.
Yeah. Well,
And
we
that's
talked
what
about that. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you about the family thing, because I'm going through the same thing you are, except I'm in the early stages. We're 3 months now into this little project we're doing.
Not even.
And not even
like,
that. So,
yeah.
I've got 3 kids like you. I work second shift at Toyota, which I'm not supposed to really ever say where I work. So forget I said that. But anyway, I work second shift and we're doing this together. So I've got, kids here all the time. And my biggest thing is that balance. How do I balance doing this, which I know this is what I want to do and the direction I want to go, and also being dad. So it's good to hear that you had a plan, and that's what I'm trying to do right now is formulate that plan so I don't alienate them while still doing that. But I think the most important thing is I have a job. I have money coming in. So when we're working on this, the whole time I'm thinking, all right, I don't need money today. I've got enough money to pay for the little things that we need right now. So that's not coming out of there. So, at least I have that much. But the family thing's the hardest thing for me.
Well, I'm the opposite. That's what makes us so good is I'm a lifelong bachelor. So I'm a little different. And everyone always says, well, you have a ton of free time, Gary. And I go, whatever. You just I don't have anyone to share the load with either. I have to do it all. And I used to say that in the military and in law enforcement, because guess who got to work Thanksgiving, Christmas, friggin' Easter, every holiday, family holiday, Gary was on duty and got to work.
Diving on that grenade.
Yeah, because I'm the guy that doesn't have a family. I go, wait a second, I actually have a family. I just don't have kids. I mean, I still have, I have a mom, and stuff. It was just funny. But for me, it's the opposite, because what happens to me, I tell people about this, too much freedom is a bad thing too, because I get scattered. There's times when I go, oh shit, I could do anything. I can do anything I want. And then I start doing this, then I start doing that. And then all of a sudden I realize I haven't done anything, because you tend to, I think the family stuff helps keep you a little focused too. And it keeps you on track. And not that I'm jealous of, my life's my life, but I've learned that as a type A, as I think all 3 of us are, that as a type A, you got to be really, really careful, because you go down a lot of rabbit holes and a lot of things look interesting. We were talking about that offline. I'm a great idea guy. I could come up with ideas all day long. It's the execution that gets me in trouble as well. Have you ever read the book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
No, but it's funny. I'm really good friends with his book marketing buddy. So hopefully he doesn't hear this.
Well, no. Stephen Pressfield actually helped me.
Nice. I was going to say, I got an autographed copy of his book right there.
Is it the
good one?
Is it that book? Yeah.
I've talked to those guys.
Nice.
Stephen Pressfield was he was just transitioning, I think, into the self-publishing. So I'd email him directly. I say, hey, Steve, this is what I'm doing. I'm lost. And he would help people. Really nice guy. And
very cool.
That's interesting, because I have the story grid. I haven't read it yet because I do fiction or nonfiction. I'm transitioning to fiction because of my background. Because everyone goes, God, you're doing all this. They go, Jason Bourne, shit, you did it. And I go, exactly. Why don't you write about that? I go, I don't like Mark Dawson. Mark Dawson.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I've never shot a gun. I don't even know how a gun works, but those are the books he writes. And I go, holy shit, I've been shooting guns since I was 9. And I'm like, okay, refocus.
Yeah.
And what I did, I think you put a good lesson in too. I did everything kind of backwards. And I would like to get kind of your scope up, because I've heard it both ways. I said, I'm going to make it no matter what. But I didn't go out, and we talked about this too, is going out without a job, saying I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I have a pot to piss in, and it makes you desperate. That's the worst time to become an entrepreneur, because you become an unscrupulous crook, basically, to try and make it most of the time. You just cut a lot of corners and do a lot of bad things.
Well, let me stop right there, though. I'm going to argue a little bit against that point. Just a little bit.
Ahead.
Okay. This is coming from somebody who did it the whole, let me do this the long run, right? You know, but there's some people that need to jump out.
I agree.
Without a parachute and build it on the way down. They need it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just the kind of person who can't do that, especially since I have children that depend on me. They need the money because with the way those kids eat, my God, I mean, I better keep making money.
Yeah.
But I have responsibilities, but I've also grown in this manner of I just don't take unnecessary risks. I can't jump out of a plane and build my parachute on the way down. So to any of the listeners out there, you need to understand who you are and try not to force yourself into something else. If you are this sounds terrible, but if you are a round peg, then you better find the round hole. Don't try to, force yourself through a square hole. There are ways, and there are people who have done an incredible job and have been very successful as online entrepreneurs doing one, and there are people who have been very successful doing the other. Just try to do what is you and what fits you best, and you'll be happier. And you not just financially successful, you'll be happier when you do it like you.
Well, see, that's what I need. I need someone like you to bring me back to sanity a little bit. Because on the law enforcement side, I did a lot of white-collar crime the last half of my career. So a lot of those guys called themselves entrepreneurs. But what they were is they were just criminals. They were white-collar criminals.
Entrepreneurs. No, I'm just kidding.
No, and that's what people understand too. Drug dealers are a good study model of businesses usually. Because big-time drug dealers run it as a business. Even though it's illegal, it's a business structure, the way they run things. That's why the big guys are successful and they kill everyone.
It's all about the margins.
Yeah. But for me, I would see these guys, they were desperate. And that's what the world I lived in. So I saw them and they were screwing each other over. And, one couldn't make his Porsche payment. So he had to screw his buddy over so he could get his Porsche. It was bizarre because I'd see all their emails. I was reading all their stuff. So you're right. I've met people that they have to have their ass in the fire. And actually a good friend of mine we brought on, he's in the fitness world. He's that way. He has to be struggling and being just on the edge of it going down the tubes.
Yeah.
And that's when he performs his best. That's when he actually lights a fire under him. But I would say for most people, and this is the advice I always give, and I'm no expert, trust me, is that the best time to do this and go out and do it is when you're stable. In a way, because that way you don't have to worry about your kids starving to death. You're not being able to take your dog to the vet. Your wife hating you. For me, the only person who's going to starve is me.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm still like you. I don't take big risks. It's not in me to do that. I want to make sure that I can set everything up and make it work accordingly. But that's the analness in me, which I fight too, because it holds you back at times.
Right.
Me and Dwayne both do it. We talk about, we overanalyze. We're think of the stuff too much instead of go with your gut, move on, figure it out. A lot of entrepreneur stuff fails. It doesn't work the first time around. You got to figure it out, move on, try not to dump a bunch of money into it right off the bat.
Right.
But I think you, from what I've seen of your stuff in the interview, it was, you had such a solid plan. And that's the thing I always talk about too, is the plan. Anything like my off the grid stuff. This is a weird world. The off the grid stuff is misconstrued. They think of it living in a shed or a teeny home that they show on TV and these programs. I go, it's not like that. You have to have a plan. If you don't start with a plan and realize it's going to take 3 to 5 years, the failure rate's like 90+%. I mean, you're going to go down. It's not going to go well for you. So I think in the entrepreneur world is coming up with a plan and not necessarily executing the plan right away. Think about it and reach out. And today there's so many communities that there's so many entrepreneurs, like the self-publishing formula. That's a whole author community. But it's interesting. You got to be careful because you start chasing again, going down the wrong rabbit hole. You got to be careful with those too, because we're in an age where there is so much information. It's a hindrance and it's a help. You have to decide where to go. If you don't know what you're doing, the internet is like the worst place to go sometimes because everyone thinks they know what they're doing. So you end up chasing all this stuff. So how did you avoid that? I mean, how did you figure out that, okay, I know I'm going to do online. Did you do the typical, or the prototypical entrepreneurs talk about is I looked for a problem that I could come up with a solution for.
No, I think I ended up on that, but I don't think that's exactly how I started.
Okay.
For me, I believe the success in online depends on three things. Okay. Traffic generating skill, a platform, and a product. The truth is that you can't really do well, or you might be able to make $1,000 a month or something like that if you do like one of the three or two of the three, but you really can't make it until you've done the three. Okay. And where most entrepreneurs get into trouble is they try to do multiples of the three. Okay. So like, for example, traffic generating skill. Oh, SEO is a great thing. I should do that. Hey, Facebook traffic. That's awesome. I hear it's great. Pinterest. I just read an article about somebody who like was totally successful with Pinterest. And so they start to dabble in all of those things and they really get nothing done. Then there's the platforms. It's one person who is like, I need a website. So they create a website and I'm going to write content for this website because that's good. And then we need a podcast. Let's start a podcast and a YouTube channel because YouTube's really big. Now they have 3 different platforms that they're trying to exist on one. And then finally products. They're just coming out with everything and anything and hoping that one of them is the one. But when you are like, if you're one person, you're trying to do all these traffic generating things, all of these platforms and all these products, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to burn out really quickly or you're not going to do anything right. You know, you're going to dabble in a little of this and you're not going to get enough to actually see success. So when I started, I was very lucky because I'm kind of a tunnel vision guy. And I was like, you know, building a website that brings in organic traffic from Google, that feels right to me. That feels like something I really want to do because it's a long-term asset. If this website is bringing in, you know, $1,000 a month, that is $1,000 a month. That is an asset. I build another website. If it brings in $1,000 a month, that means I'm making $2,000 a month every month for the rest of my life. That was my kind of thinking. I was like, this is awesome. So I didn't do any social media. I didn't jump into YouTube or anything else. I said, my one thing is SEO. That's my one traffic generating skill. My one thing is website. I will focus on content for the website. And my one product, when I first started off, was just AdSense and affiliate links to Amazon. Okay. That was it. I was simple in here, straightforward in here, and I really, really hunkered down and honed that traffic generating skill. And that has been incredible for the other stages in my online life. I started with just building niche websites and bringing people in and having them click my ads. Then I decided to build an authority website, which was Kindlepreneur. And again, I still use SEO. I still have my website. I had affiliate links, but then I created a product, the software that we talked about before. Yeah. It was a systematic step up as I went, but it's all been centered around those 3 things.
To me, you just taught me in that little conversation, you taught me probably some of the most valuable tools that I've heard yet. And I've read a bazillion books and I've ran my own business, side businesses for quite a while. And that's why I like bringing people like you on. Yeah, because sometimes we need someone to come in and just break it down. Even old crusty guys like us who've been trying, and especially me, and ideas. And you're totally right. There's so many different ways to do it. And you're right. That's how I feel most of the time. I feel scattered. Because, again, everyone told me, you need to do this, you need to do that. And if you're not doing this, you're losing out on this. And you're right. I agree with you. I've come full circle. I think you're totally right. Focus in on one thing and do it well, which is an old rule too, you know, but we've gotten away from that. And you're totally right.
And let me dispel something for you guys out there too. When you're looking at some of these really big websites or these really famous people and they're everywhere, that's not because they are everywhere. That's because they've hired a team to put them everywhere. Yeah. And a lot of people try to emulate this and they try to be everywhere and it burns them out. So with Kindlepreneur, we now do Pinterest and we do a little bit on Facebook. We have our system for SEO. We built a software. I'm now building courses, but that's because I now have 4 people that work for me full time. And I hired people who had those skills. I hired somebody who was a Pinterest guru and she does Pinterest for us. So when you look at like that big name, know that they can have multiple platforms and they can have multiple traffic skills and products because they have multiple people working for them. But for us, when we're a single person, okay, if you focus on just one of those three things, you will find success. I assure you that there's no such thing as not being able to find your market on Facebook if that's your traffic generating skill. There is no such thing as not being able to convert that traffic into something useful on a website or on a podcast. All right. And when you have those two things, you can create the right product and you can make the sale. And I'll end that with just saying that in truth, my SEO skill is honestly my most invaluable thing.
Makes sense.
I can use that traffic generating skill and start just about any business I want. And I know that I can probably be successful. That sounds very cocky. I don't mean it to be that way, but I want to put the value on developing your traffic generating skill because that will be the most important part to any business you create.
And Dave's dead right. Don't you agree, Dwayne? I think he's dead on with that because we've talked about that. And that's how I ended up in that course, the author course, is because I built the machine first without any marketing. Everything I've done has been stupidity. I mean, I'm not a marketing background either. And so me and Dwayne talk about that a lot too. But a lot of the courses are bullshit. They're just there to take your money. There's no skill. Right. They're retab. And that's why I'm glad you said that, because if I could do anything different, I would have started over and did exactly what you just said. I would have investigated and said, okay, SEO and marketing, and they go together. How do I become an expert at that? But for a lot of entrepreneurs, you'd say marketing and they about jump out the window because it is a painful thing to learn. But if you don't learn it, take it from me. Take it from a guy who has some really good ideas. People have told me, they go, your stuff's great. I go, well, why am I not Joe Rogan? What's going on here? No, but it's because I didn't focus on the marketing and I didn't focus on learning SEO. Now I'm late to the game and I'm trying to learn it. So now I feel like I'm behind, but I don't regret anything because I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. But I will flat out say what you just said, Dave, is the way you should do it 100%. I fully agree with that. And that's why I like bringing someone like you on to get dumb old Gary in line sometimes and kind of reiterate what I know is right, but you don't necessarily pursue it. You know what I mean? Because we're our own worst enemy at times. And I really, really like that. And I, like I said, full disclosure, I don't have KDP Rocket yet. I will buy it, people. The reason he's on here is because I will use that software. When I read up on it, I sent him a dumb email because I think I was off a 12-hour day and asked a real stupid question. Once I reread, I went, oh, it's right there. If I would have went to his website and just looked. And it was described in there. That is the brilliance of some of these people too, is I think your software is going to save me a lot of time. I truly do, because I'm beating my head against the wall to do it the way I think it should be done. But your software does it for me on the keyword search. If I can get you to pool it all together because you've got years of experience using it, well, now your software is going to save me days of time.
Right. Yeah.
So
why did you decide on SEO over the other things?
Well, to me, SEO is probably the hardest of all the traffic generating skills. I mean, there's instant gratification to Facebook ads, which is a phenomenal traffic generating skill, by the way. There is great, there are a lot of people that love Pinterest, and that's a great traffic generating skill. There are networkers, the ability to make connections with people that are higher up than you and use that network to build. That's another traffic generating skill. So I don't, there are all those, but SEO seemed to be the one that just kind of fit my personality a little bit more. It's you have to plan it. It's not just write. This isn't the field of dreams where if you write it, they will come. It just doesn't happen. You have to do things to understand what the Google calculation, their algorithm, right? Their search engine.
Which changes constantly.
Yeah.
Which it does. It does. But I think that what I loved most was that when I came into it, everybody was poo-pooing SEO because Amazon had just released like the Penguin update and the Hummingbird and Panda and all these all these animal changes. And a lot of people got burned and a lot of people hated it. And I was kind of like, oh, is that the one I shouldn't do, huh? That sounds cool to me. It's just my personality. And then I got into it. I was like, oh, this is just really cool how I can map things out. And it's very strategic. There's no right answer in SEO. I kind of liked it. It's almost like the Schrodinger's cat of marketing, you know?
Well, it's
and the good thing for you, is you're a nuke. So you
yeah.
And we were around those in boot camp. We were around those in the Navy. They're a
weird.
Specific way they think.
They're weird people.
And if you can find something that fits into that little niche that they think, and SEO is definitely the way it works is definitely for your mind. So.
And here, anybody who's interested in SEO, let me give you like the greatest advice I could give. And I wish it had been given to me in the beginning. Luckily, I'm just thick-headed, and so I just kept pudging through. But the reason why people fail in SEO is because they don't have the stomach or the faith. They just can't stomach it, or they can't walk in faith. SEO takes time and it takes repetition. And you just have to know that you're going to get results. And just people can handle that. All right. So if you're a new website out there and you want to make SEO your one traffic generating skill, high five to you. Okay. But if you do that, though, it's going to take you at least 6 months before you see any type of result. And not amazing results, not like instantaneously you are now rich. We're talking about like you won't see any of the fruits of your labor for at least 6 months, because Google's like, this is a new website. I'm not going to give any of that love to this new website that hasn't proven anything. And then over time, as you do more SEO, it's like, okay, let's throw it a bone here, But like me, as 3 years of being an expert, when I started Kindlepreneur, maybe 2.5 years of being an expert, I was really good, but I didn't see any real deep fruition into my website until 1 year. So I continued working on that in faith and taking it in the gut. And then finally, after about a year, things started to really click and the traffic started going.
Okay.
Because I could work in faith.
So that's the hardest thing because you're talking about working in faith, that you have to believe in it to make it work, because obviously you just said you didn't really see results for a year.
Yeah.
So during that year, was there ever any time you were like, holy crap, did I just completely make a mistake here? Or were you just, did you see steady results to get to that point? Or did you just?
So I had done about 2.5 years of building niche websites. And one thing that I tell people about skills, okay, is that you need two things that ultimately equate to a third. The first thing you need is knowledge. You just need to know enough. But then the second part, which is by far the most important part where people fail on, is you need experience. All right. You just need to gain experience. And when you combine knowledge and experience together, you build the most important thing in the world, and that's called intuition. Right? And intuition is the difference maker between the so-called master at something and the amateur. A master is able to quickly look at that Facebook ad and say, no, that's totally not going to cut it. Change these words up here, put this picture there, bam, we'll get a quicker ROI. Boom. Just like that. Whereas the amateur still needs to gain more experience, and they're kind of like, well, maybe I put this here. Let's see if that works. SEO is the same way. I can quickly look at the numbers now, and I can basically gauge and say, look, guys, if we do X, Y, and Z, we should expect this result by 2 months. That's a big thing for people. So knowledge plus experience equals intuition, and intuition is what we need. And let me add one more thing to that too. A lot of people, when they decide that they want to generate or they want to build a skill, a traffic generating skill, they'll take a course and they'll think that's what they need. But as we now know, a course is only knowledge. Now you have to spend time to build experience. You got to take that course and you just got to stick with it, and you got to fail forward until you have failed enough that the next time you know not to do it that way. And slowly but surely, you'll get to the intuition.
Well, and you think of it, Dwayne, we've talked about this. Me and Dwayne have talked about SEO, and I've always called it voodoo. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't understand, which would be me and Dwayne, pretty much. And I've tried hiring people to do SEO work for me in the past, and actually companies, and I never did it. It is 10 to 15 grand of it might work and it probably won't. And it's a weird industry. Now, for you finding these people, you learned the SEO. You were smart. You learned the hardest. You picked the hardest thing that would make you the most successful, and you did that. Which that's where Stephen Pressfield's book comes in, The War of Art. He talks about resistance that's inside us. So we take the easy route, and in our mind, it's always telling us, "Don't do that." His perfect example is how Hitler was a failed painter, yet he became one of the most evil dictators and leaders in the world and mass murders. He goes, think of that. He couldn't become Hackett as an artist, but yet because he took the easy road. It's a weird way, but Stephen Pressfield's really good in this book. But, well, doing that, now you had to choose. You learned the hard part. Now you talk about subcontracting, which is another really difficult part of being an entrepreneur, is letting loose of the reins. Something you've controlled. How did you find these people? I've tried hiring several social media experts, supposedly, and find out, as dumb as I am, I know more than them, and that's pretty bad. How'd you figure that out? I mean, how'd you do that? Because that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks for entrepreneurs.
So I did it very differently. I brought on interns. So I had a lot of people who would come up to me and be like, Dave, I'd really like to learn SEO. And I don't like coaching. It's one of the things I like the least, and I don't do it. But what I do like is building out assets. So I said, okay, I tell you what, if you come on and work on my team, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about SEO. And in return, you don't have to pay me, zero money. And in return, you're going to build me this niche website. You're going to write the content, you're going to build it out, and you're going to do the SEO. That's it. And so to them, they didn't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to get this one-on-one training with me. All right. And two, they were kind of like, wow, really? You'd give up on thousands of dollars for one website? Like, guy must seriously bring results then. Okay, cool. I'll do it. Whatever. I can trade time for knowledge. And so I did this for, about 6 people.
Okay.
And built out these great niche websites. And the cool thing about it was that I found the best ones, the ones that I could really work with. I've trained them, so they're going to be able to do SEO my way. And I was able to basically give them responsibilities inside the organization and brought them in. But the other thing that's really important, we talked about you have to, work in faith. Well, here's the funny thing. Out of those 6 people, I came back to all 6 of them like 3-4 months later. And I said, hey, how's your SEO going? Are you building out your next project? What is your project? What are you doing? Every one of them was like, no, I'm not. I'm like, yeah, just like we had like months of working together. SEO. Why aren't you doing it? Well, I thought maybe I'd look into this. I'm like, okay, fine. Let me break out the financials and show you how much money your website has made for me.
Oh, wow.
And that was the most mind-blowing thing for them when they saw the results. That was the faith they needed. They needed to see that I was making, I think it was like averaging about $800 per month per website.
Okay, that makes sense.
From what they did. And when they saw that, they said like, wow, I did that. I could have had that if I'd started working on that right after I was done with Dave's project. It wasn't anger. They weren't jealous or anything, but that's the eye-opening smack in the face they needed. So they said, well, I actually know how to do this and get results because I did. Dave's enjoying the results, but hey. So that's why so many people fail at SEO. They just can't work in faith. Even though they've got a one-on-one tutor.
Are these people all U.S.? Because you hear all the entrepreneurs go overseas and find the person in India to write your website for you. I don't believe in that. I think that's a bad way to go because of the language barrier, the time differences, cultural differences. It makes it very difficult to work. I had someone in India do it was my Kindle conversion. Something real simple, $50. It ended up being a big headache. I'd rather pay the $100 and have someone. I'd do it here now.
Well, so with my interns, I think 3 of them are American, 2 are from the UK, and one of them I think was from Spain. This is really embarrassing. I don't remember where she's actually from, but she was traveling through Europe all the time, so it was a different place every time we talked. That's okay. I love the fact that I am like. The permanent members on my team are English speakers, right?
Okay.
Legitimate English speakers. And that's good. But I wouldn't discredit some of the international workers. Like, for example, some of the virtual assistants that I've had over the years from the Philippines were amazing. English is a primary language for them.
That's true. Yeah.
And please, anybody listen to this, please don't take it as a stereotype. Just take it as statistical information you can use. But what I'll say is that they're incredible people to have because they're very, very affordable to do set tasks. Like, as in, if every week you need to edit this like this and you need to submit it in this format, like step A through F, do this every week, they're perfect for it. But where they won't, or where you might want to have someone from America or the UK, is when you want them to creatively think about how they can make this process better, or have the responsibility of some general role and just be able to be like, you know what, I'm going out there and I'm doing this marketing. This is working. We should do this. Hey, here's some suggestions. You're not going to get that. And there's a lot of cultural barrier there too, because what I found with workers in the Philippines is that sometimes they'll be like, they'll when you say, hey, can you do this? They'll say yes, because they don't want to let you down. But the truth is they don't
That's
know.
what I found.
They're going to start
That's what I found. That's exactly
what I found. It's not out of disrespect. It's just they want to please. They want to come through. So that's the general. But also, I'll say too, like the guys who work with me on my software, KDP Rocket, they run a media site called surgeviral.com, and they're incredible. They're from Sri Lanka. And I work with them all the time. They're phenomenal guys. But I also knew them personally. I used to, one of the last stations I had before I got out of the military was in Sri Lanka. So I got to sit down and have coffee with them all the time. So like I said, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I think there are great roles, great responsibilities. It doesn't need to be country specific, but what you are explaining about running into some of those cultural differences, that does exist. I like the fact that the guys working that have responsibilities in my organization, I have vetted, I have worked with, I know that I can work with them, and I've empowered them and taught them enough that they can take on a responsibility and own it.
Wow.
Okay, let's talk about this now. So let's say you're somebody that's just starting out.
Okay.
And they have an idea and they see your software. Where would you tell them to go first? The first steps to do?
So they're just starting out in self-publishing?
They're starting out in self-publishing, and they say, all right, I've got this book idea. I've written this book. What do I do now?
No problem. So first off, I recommend testing whether or not there's a market for your book idea. Okay. So if you're just starting out, you don't have a website or a platform. You don't have a traffic generating skill. You don't have email list. You don't know where the market is, right? You don't have your own market that you can direct to your product. So that's why it's super important as a self-publisher is to go to Amazon, that market, and make sure that there are people there actually searching for your book. So with KDP Rocket, like the software, you would just type in your book idea and it will tell you, okay, look, guy, like nobody wants to read that book because nobody's buying it on Amazon. Nobody's searching for it. Nobody's there. Now, it doesn't mean you can't write that book if you're like, but this is the book inside me. Okay. It means that you can't depend on Amazon to sell your book at all. You've got to go out and find that market and bring them to your book. And if you're just starting out, good luck, like may the force be with you. But
well, Dave, you just described my author beginning and program to a T. I did not research, and that's what I found from the podcast you did. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's very important, is I wrote books straight from my heart without any due diligence in seeing if there was a market. Matter of fact, I spent 1.5 years writing an exercise program, nutrition exercise program with DVDs, a whole bit. Great. Probably my best work to date. It was my very first project. Crickets. There was no market, absolutely zero market for it.
And that's why, when you look at self-publishing, Mark Dawson does a great job, as well as Nick Stevenson does a great job of focusing on this, is that you can start off writing a book for a pre-existing market. But if you want true long-term success, you need to start building up your platform. And we talked about there's 3 things to that trifecta, right? You got traffic generating, platform, and product. Okay. And that's when you get to a point where you have that traffic generating skill and you have that platform, you have fans, you have following, you have an email, they've already bought into your brand. They know who you are. They know that what you create is quality. And when you have that, that's when you can create, honestly, you can create the product you want. You can write the book you want. You can write that amazing life-changing book, whatever it is, your personal story. But you have the ability to grab that market, aka your fans and followers, and bring them to your product, and it will sell. And that's what allows your book to rise above other books, gains that competitive advantage, and then Amazon starts selling it for you, and you grow. I don't know if you guys know Pat Flynn of smartpassiveincome.com.
I've heard the name.
Okay, he's anybody who's looking at some of the stuff we were talking about, whether it's SEO and niche website building or so. He's my personal hero. So that would be a great place to start.
Hold on, let me write that down.
He launched his book, Will It Fly? And the guy has like hundreds of thousands of people on his email list. And so we looked at his book, and he could just say, look, Dave, I'm going to write this book. I said, that's awesome, man. I'm not here to tell you what book you can or can't write. Right. But he said we were able to write that book, and we were able to make it so that it was cool with Amazon. Amazon was able to, send it out to more people. But reason why he made more money in that book launch than I have in 1 year of all my books is because he's got hundreds of thousands of people that were waiting for this book. So he could just reach out to them, drag them to his book, and make the sale. So if you're just starting out, understand that you can't do that yet.
Well, for people just starting out, this is the biggest difficulty, I think, for most people who kind of go into this, is in the beginning, especially today, everything is internet, social media based for the most part. This is the difficulty I still run into today, is how do you grab that following if you're a nobody? No one knows who you are. Yeah, I mean, you're in a neighborhood, you come up with this idea, you're going to create something, you're going to write a book, whatever. What would be the first step you would tell them in order to get going to build an audience? Because that's the most difficult thing for everyone.
I would say go back to that trifecta. Choose one of each. Hunker down and build it.
Yeah, hard work, right?
Yeah, but knowing what they are is probably the hardest step for people.
I agree.
Putting on the shutters and tunnel visioning on those three and being able to say no. No is the hardest word to say, right? Somebody comes up to you and they're like, man, why aren't you doing Pinterest? Because I'm working on SEO. Well, you're an idiot. Like, this thing's awesome. Look at my numbers. Just say no.
Trust me, been there. I've done it. I've had people. I ended up on Pinterest because I was told that you need to do Pinterest. This is the way to grow. I get some traffic from Pinterest, but I cannot determine an actual ROI off Pinterest. I tried their ads when they first came out. They were garbage. And that's a problem too, is there's so much free information today that this is a mistake that I did not fall into, but I know a lot of people who were starting the same time as I did. And it's kind of a weird beast, is that you give it all away for free, and then you're upselling them into that big item. I'm torn on that. I don't like giving stuff away for free because I put a lot of work into my free stuff too. And I'm like, God, that's my life. I had to put decades into learning this stuff. And then I'm just going to give it to you for free. I hate that crap. But sometimes you have to, and I'm trying something right now and it's not working. It's a free giveaway. I don't like it. What is your thought process on that, about giving away the goods for free in order to create a funnel for an upsell or to grab email addresses? Because email today, and I'll ask you this too. Do you still think the email list is the gold standard of all ROI and marketing as an entrepreneur?
Yes. I think email is one of the most important parts because it's the only asset that you can carry with you. Case in point, I was a part of Facebook when it was called the Facebook, right? I went to the University of Wisconsin, which was the 8th school open to Facebook back when it was just for college students. So I've been on that. I've had my account forever. Wow. I don't market. I don't do advertising. I used it just to communicate with my family, when on deployment, so I didn't have to call them, just give them updates on what my life was like. I don't comment or I don't stalk, none of that. But one day I woke up and Facebook's like, hey, we shut down your account. No explanation, just it's gone. I was like, what the heck? was like, I didn't even do anything. Can I get an explanation? No. Like,
Mark didn't like you. Mark hated you.
This was only like 6 months ago. I mean,
oh really?
Yeah, just out of the blue. And I'm like, whoa. And I had all these people were calling me like, dude, what's up with your account? I was like, I don't know. I just woke up. And they just took it away. And then 3 days later, they were like, oh, our mistake. Here you go. Like, what? I had no control. So if I had had a business that was built on Facebook, I'd have been SOL, right? I would have been
in trouble.
Same thing with SEO. If I'm using improper practices and Google does an update, all of a sudden they slam me for everything I'm doing. I lose everything. Got it.
You're done.
But they can't take away my email. Email's mine. It's an asset. And I'm not going to lie, when you build it up, there's a lot of ways. Right now, if I wrote out an email, I could make money just like that. Just send an email with an affiliate link, with a mention of my product, something like that. And there will be more money into my account immediately. That's the best asset we can all have. So I'll definitely say that email is a wonderful thing.
Well, we'd like to bring you back on sometime if you have time. I know you're busy. I know you got other products. So we'd like to bring you on and talk about those too, because I think a lot of our followers we have a lot of military and people transitioning out, veterans. So I think they really, I know I like it. I know Dwayne likes it. Hopefully our listeners like it. We're still fairly new, but I think we're building pretty good. I think we're catching a good crowd that I'd like to bring you on to talk about more of those, especially kind of how to get that email list. Because I asked that because I have always been told it's the gold standard. And it's another mistake I made. I did not focus on an email list. Like I said, I did a lot of things wrong. And I'm open. Anyone who knows me, man, I can be a jerk sometimes, people tell me. But for the most part, I'm a pretty open guy. When I screw something up, I tell you, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I like hearing, telling people and having you come go, okay, Gary, you just told that's wrong. And I want to hear that because I need to hear it to improve my stuff as well. So I would like to bring you back on maybe to talk about email marketing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, most definitely.
At some point. Now, I know you got to go. You're a busy guy. To cap it off, if you would go over the top 3 things to do again and tell people where they can find your products and what if you got any future things, that would be great.
Yeah, here's a couple of recaps of the things I think that are most important for anybody who's listening. The first thing is know what your goal is. Set what your definition of success is. That's the most important. That's what keeps you that's what gets you up in the morning at 4 a.m. is when you know what you're working for. Okay. Another thing that we didn't bring up that I meant to was to also say too, is that if you have a spouse, highly, highly recommend you get her on board with this whole thing.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I mean, if your spouse is against it, you're screwed. Like, I'm sorry, but there's no support there and you're only hurting your family by doing it. So, make sure she's truly on board and you guys have negotiated what life should be. The third thing is that if you want long-term success online, you need those 3 things, right? Traffic generating skill, platform, and product. Most important of all is traffic generating skill, but remember, it's a skill. It takes like 10,000 hours before you can master it. Somebody smarter than me said that, right? So understand 10,000 hours. So it's not 100 hours. It's not 2 weeks. But when you have developed that skill, you have the power to be able to succeed in any online project you create.
That 10,000 hour rule, I have pounded that. I've pounded that forever in anything I've ever done. I think it's is it Malcolm Gladwell?
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, that sounds like sounds like something that guy would say.
Yeah, so, that is you've given us some great advice. Really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I know you're in the middle of a lot of stuff. That's how I found you. I found your interview to be kind of very interesting on my end because it just wasn't authors. You had a lot of stuff in there that went in multiple directions on that podcast. So yeah, well, anytime you want to come on or you have something to say or you're more than welcome to come on anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me.
Hey, no problem. I really enjoyed it. And if you guys enjoyed Dave, make sure you go on and check out his website. What's your website again?
Kindlepreneur.com, like Kindle Entrepreneur.
I have it up right now. Matter of fact,
go check it out because he has some great information and it's very, very economical if you want to to buy the program and go on and help improve your website and your success. So Dave, once again, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week.